Young and the Restless, spoilers full episodes. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. The differences between Riza and Adam were beginning to reveal the truth. It was like a trap that had been set long before he arrived, a space devoid of any comfort transformed into a battlefield of memories, suspicion, and unfulfilled revenge. Riza thought she was Adam's enemy, but no, they were lovers. She didn't trust his face, his voice, or the calculated calm he brought into the room. She only trusted what she could verify with her own eyes and hands. That detail spoke volumes about the distance between them. Whatever they once shared, whatever distorted bonds of loyalty, desire, or ambition had once bound them had now rotted into something harsher. Adam knew he had done wrong and had to bear the consequences, but he was living happily with Chelsea. Adam advised Riza to start a new life, thus forcing her to forget the past. But Riza wouldn't accept it. He spoke as if it were a practical decision, the kind made by a man forced by circumstances, not by emotion. He said the family's financial collapse had changed everything. Riza and Adam were still arguing fiercely. At first glance, it was a compelling story. It had enough bitterness, enough wounded pride, and enough despair to sound genuine. But Riza didn't take it with relief or triumph. She took it with suspicion. Adam said that if she wanted the money, she should give him time and he would fulfill her request. Otherwise, she wouldn't. He always had layers of disguise, always a hidden side, always kept a part of himself closed off where no one could reach him. That was part of the reason he had once been useful and also part of the reason he was dangerous, even to those closest to him. Riza listened to his explanation, but she didn't soften. If anything, his attempts at appearing realistic only made her more wary. She had lived too long in a world built on lies to mistake a prepared confession for truth. When she called room service, the scene suddenly became eerily normal, further increasing the tension. The simple act of ordering food, speaking in a controlled and almost indifferent tone, sharply contradicted the underlying threat between them. But it was in that moment, when the pressure eased enough for old truths to surface, that Riza confessed more than she had intended. She admitted that money hadn't come easily since Adam left. It wasn't merely a business remark. It was an accusation disguised as truth. He was her best student, the one who understood the rules of the game faster than anyone else, the one who could predict risks and manipulate outcomes with frightening precision. His departure was not merely a personal betrayal. It damaged the power, income, and machine she had built around herself. Only in that confession did the real wound begin to surface. Then the fateful moment shattered the fragile structure of their conversation. Riza, driven by jealousy, resentment, and a burning desire to regain control, closed the distance between them and kissed Adam. It wasn't a tender kiss, not an impulsive reunion, and certainly not a sign of reconciliation. It was an act of aggression disguised as intimacy. It was revenge carried out through closeness. With that single gesture, she invaded the space he had so carefully tried to control, thrusting him into a confrontation more dangerous than a drawn gun. That kiss was more than simply about passion. It was also about possession, accusation, and a painful reminder that their history had never truly been buried. What made that kiss so disturbing was what it revealed. Beneath the tension, beneath the orchestrated lies and cautious actions lay a secret neither wanted to acknowledge. Their relationship had never been pure. It was built on manipulation, power imbalances, and emotional dependence long before either dared call it betrayal. With that kiss, Riza exposed this deep-seated personal conflict. She exposed the hatred. The neon lights of the Las Vegas Strip bled through the slatted blinds of the suite, casting a fractured, pulsing glow over Adam Newman's face. The air conditioning hummed a low mechanical drone that did nothing to cool the sudden, inexplicable heat rising beneath his collar. He stood frozen, his fingers hovering over his lips. Riza Thompson had just walked out the door. The echo of the latch clicking shut still reverberated in the quiet room. It wasn't the kiss itself that left him unnerved, though. Riza pressing her lips to his had been entirely unexpected, a desperate bruising collision of mouths that lacked any genuine affection. No, it was the lingering sensation she left behind. A metallic tang coated his tongue, sharp and bitter like a copper penny, accompanied by a strange numbing tingle that was rapidly spreading down his jawline. Adam wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, his brow furrowing. "What the hell was that, Riza?" he muttered to the empty room. He took a step toward the minibar to pour himself a glass of water, but the floor seemed to tilt. The geometric patterns of the hotel carpet suddenly writhed, the maroon and gold shapes twisting like serpents. Adam blinked hard, shaking his head. Asterisk. Just fatigue times, he told himself. Asterisk. You've been pushing too hard. Asterisk. But when he looked up, the reflection in the mirror wasn't his own. The pristine, tailored suit of the Newman media executive was gone, replaced by a dark, unkempt reflection. The eyes staring back were hollow, predatory, spider's eyes. A sudden spike of panic pierced his chest. He gripped the edge of the marble counter, his knuckles turning white. The shadows in the corners of the room stretched and elongated, morphing into distorted, mocking figures. He could hear whispers, faint, overlapping voices that sounded like the clatter of poker chips and the sinister laugh of a man he was hunting. Adam squeezed his eyes shut. Asterisk, pull it together times, he commanded his fractured mind. He couldn't afford to be sick. He couldn't afford to lose his grip. Not now. He and Nick were too close to tracking down Matt Clark. If Nick knew he was compromised, his brother would pull the plug on the operation and Matt would slip back into the shadows. Adam splashed cold water on his face, watching the hallucinations ripple and fade at the edges of his vision. He would hide this. He had to. But the symptoms didn't abate. By the time Adam tracked Riza down to the dimly lit back alley behind the Palomino Club, the buzzing in his ears had grown to a deafening roar. The neon signs above them seemed to strobe in chaotic, aggressive rhythms. Riza was leaning against the brick wall, smoking a cigarette. Her hand trembled as she brought it to her lips. She didn't look like the confident, untouchable queen of the Vegas underground. She looked terrified. Adam lunged his impaired judgment, stripping away his usual calculated restraint. He pinned her by the shoulders against the rough brick, the cigarette falling from her fingers and sparking on the damp pavement. "What did you do to me?" Adam growled, his voice dropping to a dangerous, gravelly octave that belonged entirely to Spider. "The kiss. What was on your lips?" Riza gasped, her eyes wide with genuine fear. "Adam, let me go." "Tell me." He roared, the alleyway spinning around him. He saw a flash of Matt Clark's face superimposed over Riza's laughing at him. He blinked it away, his grip tightening. "I'm seeing things, Riza. My blood feels like battery acid. Give me the antidote, or so help me." Tears spilled over Riza's heavy eyeliner, cutting dark tracks down her cheeks. "There is no antidote. Not that I have, anyway." She choked on a sob, her tough exterior entirely shattered. "I didn't have a choice, Spider. You have to believe me." "Who made you do it?" Adam demanded, though the creeping dread in his gut already knew the answer. "Matt," she whispered the name hanging in the humid night air like a curse. "Matt Clark. He found me. He knew you'd come looking for him, knew you'd reach out to me for my connections. He told me to wear the lipstick. It's a slow-acting neurotoxin mixed with a potent hallucinogen. He said it would break your mind before it stopped your heart." Adam stumbled back, releasing her as a wave of nausea washed over him. Why, he breathed. "Why would you betray me?" "Because he has," my sister Riza cried out, clutching her arms around herself. "He threatened my family, Adam. He showed me pictures of them. He said if I didn't poison you, they would be dead before sunrise. What was I supposed to do? You're a ghost from my past, but they are my blood." Adam staggered the brick wall, scraping against his shoulder as he tried to keep himself upright. The betrayal stung, but the poison was doing far worse. The edges of his vision darkened, tunneling in on Riza's sobbing form. Matt Clark had orchestrated this perfectly. He had weaponized Adam's past against him. Nick Newman paced the length of their shared safe house, his heavy boots thudding rhythmically against the hardwood floor. He was sweating, his jaw clenched so tight it ached. His hand kept drifting toward the pocket of his leather jacket, his fingers brushing against the small plastic bottle hidden within the fentanyl. The pills Matt Clark's cronies had planted on him, the pills that had started as a crutch for his broken leg and had rapidly mutated into a monstrous craving. Nick squeezed his eyes shut, fighting the tremor in his hands. Asterisk, no. I am stronger than this. I will not let Matt win. Asterisk. The door swung open and Adam walked in. Or rather, he stalked in.
Nick turned instantly, recognizing the shift. Adam's posture was rigid, his movements jerky and aggressive, but it was his eyes that caught Nick's attention.
Adam's pupils were blown wide, swallowing his irises, giving him a shark-like deadened stare. "Did you find anything?" Nick asked, trying to keep his own voice steady, masking the desperation of his withdrawal. Riza talked. Adam said, his voice flat, devoid of its usual inflection. He walked over to the table and began loading a matte black pistol with terrifying efficiency. "I know where Matt is." Nick frowned, stepping closer. "Adam, are you okay? You look like hell. You're sweating." "I'm fine," Adam snapped, slamming the magazine into the grip. The sharp times, clack times echoed in the room. He didn't tell Nick about the poison. He couldn't. Nick was already hanging on by a thread. If he knew Adam was compromised, Nick would try to take the lead, and Nick was in no condition to face Matt Clark alone. You don't look fine, Nick pressed, his protective instincts warring with his own internal agony. You're acting erratic. You look like you did when we first found you in that poker room years ago. You look like Spider. Adam let out a low, humorless chuckle. The sound was abrasive. Maybe Spider is exactly who we need right now, Nicholas. The polished Newman executive isn't going to survive the gutter. Matt Clark operates in the dirt. Spider knows how to bury people in it. Nick grabbed Adam's arm, stopping him from chambering around. We do this my way, Adam. We get the evidence, we lure him out, and we let the authorities handle it. We are not assassins. Adam yanked his arm free with surprising violence. A violent hallucination flashed before his eyes, Nick's face melting, revealing a grinning skull beneath. Adam stumbled back, blinking rapidly to dispel the nightmare. The poison was eroding his prefrontal cortex, stripping away his morality, his caution, his love for his brother. All that remained was the primal, ruthless instinct of the survivor. The Vegas card shark who trusted no one and destroyed anyone in his path. Your way got you hooked on painkillers, Nick. Adam spat the words cruel and venomous. He saw the flash of hurt and shame in Nick's eyes, but Spider didn't care. Your way makes you weak. I'm finishing this tonight. The drive to the industrial district was a nightmare. Adam was behind the wheel of their rented sedan, driving with a reckless, terrifying speed. He swerved through the neon-lit streets of Vegas, running red lights, the tires screeching against the asphalt. Slow down, Nick shouted, bracing his hands against the dashboard. You're going to get us killed before we even reach him. Fear is a liability, Adam muttered, his eyes fixed dead ahead. But what he was seeing wasn't the road. The asphalt looked like a rushing river of blood. The headlights of oncoming cars were the glowing eyes of predators. The hallucinogen was peaking, tearing his grip on reality to shreds. He was operating purely on muscle memory and blinding rage. Pull over, Adam now, Nick demanded, reaching for the steering wheel. Adam backhanded him a sharp, vicious strike that caught Nick off guard. The car swerved violently, narrowly missing a concrete divider before Adam corrected it. Don't touch me, Adam roared, his voice cracking. You don't know what's happening. You don't know what's in my head. Nick stared at his brother, rubbing his jaw, horrifying realization dawning on him. Your high Nick breathed his own struggles with addiction, making him hyper-aware of the signs. Adam, what did you take? I didn't take anything. Adam screamed, slamming on the brakes. The car skidded to a halt in the shadow of a massive abandoned warehouse. Dust billowed around them in the moonlight. Adam turned to Nick, his chest-heaving sweat pouring down his pale face. Riza poisoned me. Matt Clark forced her to do it. It's a hallucinogen. It's tearing my mind apart. Nick felt the blood drain from his face. We need to get you to a hospital. Now, no. Adam threw open his door and stumbled out into the desert night air. He drew his weapon, his hands shaking violently. Matt is in there. He's the only one who knows exactly what this is. He's the only one who can stop it. I'm not leaving until he's dead, or I am... Before Nick could stop him, Adam sprinted toward the rusted side door of the warehouse, disappearing into the darkness. Nick cursed his hand instinctively, reaching for the fentanyl in his pocket. He needed the edge. He needed the pain to stop so he could save his brother. But as his fingers brushed the plastic bottle, he thought of Adam poisoned and losing his mind, charging into a death trap. With a guttural yell, Nick pulled the bottle from his pocket and hurled it into the desert brush. He drew his own weapon and ran after Adam. The interior of the warehouse was a cavernous labyrinth of stacked shipping crates and flickering, dying fluorescent lights. To Adam, it looked like the antechamber of hell. The shadows danced and writhed, whispering his name. Spider, Spider. Adam stumbled forward, his gun raised, aiming at phantoms. Show yourself, Clark, he bellowed, his voice echoing off the corrugated metal walls. You always were a loudmouth, Adam, a voice echoed from above. Adam whipped around, aiming his gun at a metal catwalk. Matt Clark stepped into the dim light. He looked exactly as he had years ago, smug, arrogant, a ghost back from the dead to torment the Newmans. How does it feel, Matt taunted, leaning over the railing. To lose your mind, to feel your precious, superior Newman intellect dissolving into nothing. You're right back where you belong, Adam, in the gutter. A nameless, faceless degenerate. I'm going to kill you, Adam, snarled, firing a shot. The bullet sparked against the metal railing, inches from Matt's hand. Matt laughed, a chilling sound that multiplied in Adam's poisoned brain until it sounded like a choir of demons. You can't even aim straight. You're seeing double, aren't you? Seeing ghosts? Adam groaned, dropping to one knee as a blinding pain lanced through his skull. The warehouse floor seemed to drop away beneath him, replaced by a bottomless abyss. He saw Victor Newman standing in the shadows, shaking his head in disappointment. He saw Chelsea weeping. He saw the man he had killed in Vegas, the blood pooling around his shoes. "Get out of my head," Adam screamed, clutching his temples with his free hand. Matt descended the metal stairs, a heavy steel pipe in his hand. "It's not me in your head, Adam. It's you. The poison just unlocked the door. You're fighting your own true nature. You are Spider. You are a killer. And tonight you die like a dog." Adam forced himself to stand, raising his gun, but his vision blurred. There were 3 Matt Clarks advancing on him. He fired blindly, the shots going wide. Matt lunged, swinging the steel pipe. It caught Adam in the ribs with a sickening crunch. Adam collapsed his gun, skittering across the concrete floor. Matt stood over him, raising the pipe for a lethal strike. Tell Victor I said hello. Adam looked up the hallucinogen, twisting Matt's face into a monstrous fanged gargoyle. Adam couldn't move. His muscles were paralyzed, his mind utterly shattered. He was going to die here, lost in the dark, consumed by the poison and his own sins. The shout ripped through the warehouse. Matt turned just as Nick Newman slammed into him like a freight train. The 2 men crashed to the concrete, the steel pipe clattering away. Nick was fueled by adrenaline, withdrawal-induced rage, and a desperate need to protect his brother. He rained punches down on Matt's face, his knuckles splitting against bone. "You stay away from my family." Nick roared, each punch a release of the agony and temptation he had been battling for weeks. Matt, stunned by the sheer ferocity of the attack, managed to get a knee up, kicking Nick off him. He scrambled to his feet, wiping blood from his mouth. He looked at Nick, then at Adam, who was convulsing on the floor. "This isn't over, Newman," Matt spat, turning and sprinting toward a loading dock door. Nick started to give chase, but a choked, gurgling sound stopped him. He turned back to see Adam seizing his eyes, rolled back in his head, white foam gathering at the corners of his mouth. The poison was reaching its final stage. No. Nick abandoned the pursuit, dropping to his knees beside his brother. He grabbed Adam by the shoulders, turning him onto his side so he wouldn't choke. "Adam, stay with me. Fight it." Adam's body went rigid, his jaw locking. In his mind, he was falling through a void, surrounded by fire. He couldn't hear Nick. He could only hear the roaring flames. Nick pulled out his phone, his bloody fingers fumbling with the screen as he dialed 911. "I need an ambulance at the abandoned warehouse on 4th and Industrial. My brother has been poisoned. It's a neurotoxin. Hurry." He tossed the phone aside and gripped Adam's face. "You don't get to die on me, Adam. Do you hear me? We have too much unresolved crap between us for you to check out now. Breathe." Slowly, agonizingly, the seizure subsided. Adam went limp, his breathing shallow and ragged. His skin was ice cold, drenched in a toxic sweat. Nick pulled off his own jacket and draped it over Adam, holding his brother close as the distant wail of sirens pierced the desert night. The sterile white lights of the Las Vegas hospital room were a stark contrast to the neon nightmares of the past 24 hours. The steady beep of the heart monitor was the only sound in the room. Adam lay in the hospital bed, an IV line feeding a cocktail of sedatives, fluids, and broad-spectrum antitoxins into his veins. His skin was pale, dark circles bruising the delicate skin beneath his eyes. He looked fragile, a far cry from the ruthless Spider or the formidable Newman executive. Nick sat in the chair beside the bed, elbows resting on his knees, his hands clasped together. He hadn't slept. The cravings for the fentanyl were a dull, constant ache in his bones, but watching his brother fight for his life had put everything into perspective. Matt Clark had tried to destroy them both, Nick through addiction, Adam through a poisoned kiss. Adam's eyelids fluttered, then slowly peeled open. He winced at the bright light, his throat dry as sandpaper. "Nick," he croaked, his voice barely a whisper. Nick leaned forward, relief washing over his exhausted features. "I'm here, man. I'm right here." "Matt." Adam forced the word out, his memory fragmented but returning. "He got away," Nick admitted, his jaw tightening. "But the police raided the warehouse. They found his operation. They seized his assets. He's on the run, Adam, with no money and no power." Adam closed his eyes, a deep, shuddering sigh escaping his lips. "The kiss," he murmured. It was in my head. He made me fight myself." I know, Nick said softly. The doctor said the hallucinogen was specifically designed to trigger paranoia and suppress trauma. It was psychological warfare. But the neurotoxin is out of your system. You're going to be okay." Adam turned his head to look at Nick. He saw the bruised knuckles, the exhaustion, the raw vulnerability in his brother's eyes. Nick had saved him. Despite the friction, despite the brutal words Adam had hurled at him while under the influence, Nick had chosen him. "You threw away the pills," Adam noted, his gaze dropping to Nick's empty jacket, pocket hanging on the chair. Nick nodded slowly. I threw them in the desert. I'm done letting Matt Clark control my life, and you're done letting him control yours. Adam stared up at the ceiling, the lingering shadows of the hallucinations finally dissolving into the harsh clinical light. He could still feel the phantom touch of RIZA'S lips, a chilling reminder of how easily the past could be weaponized. Matt Clark had used Adam's time as Spider against him turning his own mind into a battlefield, but Matt had made a fatal miscalculation. He had assumed the poison would break Adam, that it would leave him a shattered, empty shell. He hadn't accounted for the resilience of a Newman. Adam clenched his fist, feeling the strength slowly returning to his muscles. The poison had forced him to face the darkest corners of his soul, to confront the ruthless spider that still lived within him. But instead of destroying him, it had forged a new clarity. He's not going to get away with this, Nick, Adam said, his voice gaining a fraction of its usual steel. He tried to kill me. He tried to destroy you. We'll get him, Nick agreed, his tone resolute. Together. Adam looked back at his brother, a cold, calculating light returning to his eyes. The hallucinations were gone, but the ruthlessness remained tempered now by a cold, singular focus. Matt Clark had delivered a poisonous kiss, a deadly message wrapped in betrayal. But Adam Newman was still breathing. And when he finally recovered, when he stepped out of this hospital and back into the world, he would not be the man Matt Clark remembered. He would be something far more dangerous. He would be the storm that wiped Matt Clark off the face of the earth. Yes, Adam whispered, the heart monitor, beeping in a steady, relentless rhythm. We will.